Well, welcome back to Dragon Pugs. My name is Gary Gregg, and we're reading from my novel, The Sporran. And we're named Dragon Pugs because, well, there's a surprise dragon pug maybe waiting on us. This should be episode 4 of reading from The Sporran. So if you haven't caught up, go back and catch up. For those of you who have, here's a quick reminder of what happened. We've got Jacob Boyd, who has received a sporran from his father from St. Andrews in Scotland. His father is visiting on a business trip. We have his friend Jenny and Will helping out with the mysteries that are unfolding. You might remember a baseball went into the pouch, disappeared. You might remember we left things off with the kids hatching the plan of putting a mouse trap into the sporran in case it would, somebody was playing a trick on Jacob and they would get their fingers snapped. And there's a mysterious red-bearded, disheveled man outside science class. So that's where we are. Things are unfolding. Things are happening. Let's catch up now. With what's happening next. Next chapter is called The Blood Red Ball. You ever seen a red ball? Blood red ball. Should try to think about what that might be. Jenny couldn't wait for an answer when Jacob climbed aboard the bus. She hadn't really believed there was a serious mystery about the baseball's disappearance, but she was hoping to hear a good story about either Jacob or Mrs. Boyd having had their fingers caught in the mouse trap. "So who turns out to be the mouse?" she asked, as Jacob fell hard into the seat in front of her. Jacob turned to look her in the eye and whispered, "Wait until Will gets here." A few stops later, in the subdivision next to Jacob's and Jenny's, the bus stopped at Will's house, and Will climbed aboard. He was followed by his little brother Lenny, who never failed to annoy Jacob and Jenny, and drove his brother absolutely mad. Will dropped into the seat next to Jacob, and before Jenny could spread her book bag across the seat to keep Lenny away, he was in the seat next to her, staring, as always, blankly into her face. Did you ever have anyone do that? Just stare at you? Yeah, it's very off-putting. Lenny, by all accounts, was a very creepy kid. "What happened?" asked Will in great anticipation. "Yep, let's have it," said Jenny. Jacob began to talk, but noticed Lenny staring at them. "Do you mind?" he said to Lenny, as the three huddled closer. With a voice of very serious clarity, seldom heard from a boy his age, Jacob told his two friends of the mousetrap missing from the sporran where they had placed it the night before. Among his friends, Jacob may have had a reputation for some crazy theories and being a real dreamer, but none of them doubted that he always told the truth. There may be reasonable explanation for the missing ball and the mousetrap, but neither Jenny nor Will had any doubt that Jacob genuinely believed that something had disappeared. "Okay, it's official," Jenny said with resignation. "We have a mystery on our hands. What do we do now?" "Look," said Jacob, sending a strong look in Jenny's direction. "There are too many ears around here now." "Yep," Will interjected. "Let's meet up at lunch and hatch a plan." "Deal," said Jacob. "Fine," confirmed Jenny. As Jacob turned back to glance out the window, the bus was passing the third hole on Eagle Creek Golf Course. Jacob's curiosity was aroused as he noticed a bearded man look up from his ball on the green and stare at the bus. It was the man from outside the science class window again. He was sure of it. And just like in science class, Jacob had the eerie feeling the man was looking right at him. It was almost as if the man was recognizing him as someone who maybe he knew from a long time ago. When they met up for lunch, Jenny had already been thinking seriously about what needed to happen next. Okay, she said before Will could even unwrap his sandwich of soggy toast and cheese with ketchup and mustard. It was a sandwich that always weirded everyone else out. Soggy toast. Information is what we need. We need research. We need to know everything we can about what this Sporran really is, Jenny stated, as if she was mustering the troops for battle. Yes, sir, said Will, annoyed that she was falling into her "I'm the boss around here" again her attitude. Good idea, said Jacob. Now, it's Friday night, said Jenny. I'm still not convinced there is not some perfectly reasonable explanation for these disappearances. So why don't we all just spend the night together in your house, and then we can see if something strange happens. I'll ask my mom as soon as I get home, replied Jacob. Ask your parents and wait for my phone call. All agreed. The three spent the rest of their lunch dividing up the research jobs. Each of them would have to do. Jacob's first priority would be to get more information from his father about the Sporran, where it came from, under what circumstances he found it, etc. Jenny would use her library time that afternoon to find books that might give some insight into traditional Scottish dress and customs. Will was to check the internet. As the lunch period ended, they also agreed that with Jacob's assertion that none of them should tell anyone what was going on, at least not yet. The bus ride home that evening was just like any other. Some students were loud and some were quiet. Some read and others told jokes and stories about their day at school. Jacob was uncharacteristically quiet, as were Jenny and Will. Daydreaming out the window as trees, houses, and telephone poles rushed by. Ever done that? Ever daydreamed out the window of the bus, just watching the telephone poles zoom by? I've done that many times when I was a kid. Well, while Jacob was doing that, Jacob was jolted to reality again when he noticed a man walking up the road near Eagle Creek Golf Course, which was just around the corner from his home. He snapped his head to the right quickly to watch him disappear behind the bus. It was the bearded man again. Where'd that guy come from? Why does he always seem to be looking at me? Jacob thought. As soon as Jacob arrived home and had a snack, he emailed a message to his father, who was still in Scotland on business. This is what that note wrote. Dad, thanks again for the Sporran. I'm very curious about it and want to know everything I possibly can about how you got it. Is there anything else you can tell me about it? Frankly, it's a little weird, but don't mention that to Mom, please. Sometimes it's better that she not know when out of the ordinary things are happening, you know. She's not like us in that way. I look forward to hearing anything else that you know, and I'm looking forward to you being home again. Love, Jacob. P.S. Baseball starts in 3 weeks. I really hope you're home for opening day. He looked around his room again for the baseball and mousetrap until he heard his mom's car pull in the drive. Jacob was waiting when his mother entered the kitchen from the door that led into the garage. Hi, Mom. How was your day? He asked as she crossed the threshold into the kitchen. Fine, Mrs. Boyd answered, her voice slow and rising as if to say, What's going on here? Something isn't quite right. Oh, excellent, said Jacob. A fine end to a fine week for a fine mother. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. What do you want? Said Mrs. Boyd, seeing right through her son's overly dramatic concern for her well being. Could Jenny and Will stay over tonight? Mrs. Boyd hesitated with an answer. Well, I suppose so. But you'll have to all sleep in the family room and in sleeping bags spread around the room. And remember, you have baseball practice in the morning, and so you'll have to be in bed early enough that you can get up in the morning and get to baseball practice. Done, agreed Jacob as he turned toward the phone to call Jenny and Will. That evening, Jenny and Will shared the little bit of the information that they had been able to gather about the Sporran. All in all, it didn't amount to very much. As it turns out, Will didn't know how to spell very well. A little secret, I didn't know how to spell very well either when I was Will's age. Maybe I still don't know as well as I should. Well, Will didn't know how to spell very well, and so he had only heard the word Sporran. He didn't know how to spell it. So he spent most of the afternoon typing and retyping various spelling versions, such as SPOUR-AN and SPORN and SPOREN, and reading useless items that came up during his search of the internet using the wrong spelling of the word. They quickly decided that in order for this to be a successful experiment, they would have to put something into the pouch again. But what could it be? Will brought what was left from his dinner with him and wanted to put it in the pouch. Cold beef stroganoff will really weird out anyone who tries to take it out. They'll have a great mess, he argued. We then can just follow the trail of gravy. Disgusting, said Jenny. You are not putting anything like that in anything of mine, answered Jacob as he rolled his eyes. How about that bizarre little rat skull you have in your room? Suggested Jenny. That thing always gives me the creeps anyway. No way, Jacob answered as his eyes searched the family room. I'm not putting anything I don't want to lose in that pouch ever again. Besides, it's not a rat skull. It's a skull of a squirrel that my dad sent me, and please refer to him by his proper name, which is Merle. Here. He continued as he pointed to a small, gold-colored metal cup from which he had been drinking milk a short while later. Mom won't miss this old cup, should it disappear. At some point later on, if somebody sends me a note and reminds me, I will show you that gold cup. He placed the cup in the Sporran and hung it on the edge of the chair near the fireplace in the family room. The three lay down in the sleeping bags that they had spread all over the room and talked themselves to sleep, just as they had many times before. They had been best friends since they were in Mrs. Boardman's kindergarten class together. Occasionally, Mrs. Boyd's voice would remind them to be quiet. Do I have to separate you three? I'm sure you've all heard that before. She would say. Each call from her room got progressively more loud and serious. But soon sleep came upon the three, and none of them stirred until the light rose on the new day. Jenny was the first to waken. Through the morning light filtering into the room, she noticed the bulge of the Sporran was still there. She laid back down, assuming the mystery was about to come to an end, and drifted back to sleep. Will awoke next and shook the other two. Don't worry about it, said Jenny. It's still there. Somewhat relieved and somewhat disappointed, Jacob got up and took the Sporran from its hanging place. Well, let me put the cup back before Mom gets up, he said as he lifted the pouch. His hand had barely entered it when it shot back up, as if the sporran had bitten him, or something inside had bitten him like a small monster or a flame. He dropped the sporran and backed away. The sporran hit the floor as Will and Jenny jumped back. "It's not there," cried Jacob. "It's not there. There's something else there. Something else is in there." "What is it?" Jenny and Will asked pretty much at the same time. "I don't know, but it's no cup, that's for sure." "Well, someone has to open it and see what's inside, and it's not going to be me," said Will. Jenny slid her foot closer to the pouch and gave it a quick kick. The flap opened, and out of the sporran and across the floor rolled a blood-red ball. The next chapter is called The Ticket. And since it picks up right with that blood-red ball there, let's just read a little bit of that as well, while you're thinking about what this possibly could be. The ball rolled across the floor and came to rest against the stones that made up the base of the Boyd's fireplace. The three partners just sat silently and stared, half frightened and half amazed at the red orb resting on the floor. None of them dared move toward it. Finally, Will broke the silence. "Looks like your baseball puked itself inside out or something on the way back to us, Jake." Will was right. It was about the same size as a baseball, and the one had disappeared into the sporran 2 nights before. And if baseballs had blood and guts in them, this one resembled a ball turned inside out. You ever seen what's inside a baseball? Sometimes they can be kind of red. Maybe not as red as this is. Maybe. I don't know what this is yet. But they often have red strings in the inside, and red strings wrapped around, probably at the bottom. Most baseballs have a little rubber ball at the middle, and then a very tightly wrapped string, twine around it, and then the cover on the outside. But I took apart a baseball once. I played baseball for a lot of years, so I've taken a lot of baseballs apart, and I've hit a lot of baseballs in my garage, or not in my garage, in my backyard, where my children would hit them or throw them and leave them, and let me run over them with a mower. Maybe I'll show you some of those at some point too. I have some down the hall of those from years past when I ran them over. But one time when I was a kid, we had this really cheap baseball. It had a plastic kind of cover on it. It was really cheap. And it started to come apart, and so we just ripped it apart. And that baseball, you won't ever believe what was inside of that thing. It wasn't a blood red ball. Didn't seem to puke itself inside out. It wouldn't look like what this ball is. What was inside was a bunch of Chinese garbage. Yeah, believe it or not. It was they must have taken old wrappers from, looked like maybe candy bars or fortune cookies or something like that. Cellophane wrappers, clear cellophane wrappers with logos on them and wording. And they squashed them into a tight ball, and then around that wrapped some string, and then the cover. That was a really cheap baseball, and I'm sure we hit it many times and wondered why we didn't hit it very far. I'm sure that's why, because it just had tight garbage in it. It did not have a ball in it at all. Well, the three slowly moved closer to the alien orb. They noticed its most disgusting feature was the one line of bumpy stitches that went straight round the middle of the ball and wrapped all the way around its circumference. So remember how a baseball has, I'm sure you've all seen a baseball, Baseball has a sort of a, I don't know, horseshoe kind of stitching around, then gets closer together and it opens up again on the other side. This ball just had one set of stitching right around the middle of the ball. Like if you looked at the Earth and you drew a picture of the equator around the Earth, that's what it looks like. It's just a red ball with one line of stitching. So if it did puke itself out, if it was originally a baseball, must have done something else too, because that's not the way the stitching works in a baseball. Interesting. Should we touch it? Asked Jenny. Maybe we should tell your mom, said Will apprehensively. No, answered Jacob. My mom would freak out and take it away from me if she knew anything was going on. If I need to, I'll tell Dad, because he might understand. But Mom won't. Well, then someone is going to have to do something with that thing, said Jenny. I have no idea, said Jacob, as he disappeared into the kitchen. I should say, I have an idea, said Jacob, as he disappeared into the kitchen. He reappeared a minute later with a plastic bag and 2 forks. Plan on making some lunch? Jenny said sarcastically. Jacob gave Will the bag and asked Jenny to listen for his mother as he hunched over the ball and began to place the forks on either side of it. Wait, said Jenny in a atypical moment of imagination. What if it's alive or something? And you make it angry by stabbing it. It's not alive, said Jacob. Now please, let me concentrate. Slowly, very, very slowly, Jacob put the forks solidly against the sides of the ball and began to lift. Will was so nervous about being touched by the red round visitor that he began swaying and shaking. Hold still, insisted Jacob, as he swung the ball over toward the bag. Will closed his eyes, turned his head away from Jacob and the ball, and said, I hope this is a zipper seal lock bag, in case it starts to ooze some kind of toxic chemicals or something. Here she comes, Jenny announced with a forceful whisper as Mrs. Boyd started down the stairs. Jacob dropped the ball into the bag and yanked it from Will's shaking hands. Shoving it behind the stack of wood that rested by the fireplace, he sprang up to meet his mother. I'll be ready for practice in just a minute, Mom. Fine, but wouldn't you like to have breakfast first? Oh, great idea, Mrs. Boyd, said Will, who was not one to miss a meal, even when mysterious and possibly deadly red balls appear out of nowhere in the family room. Jacob, Will, and Jenny found it impossible to carry on a normal conversation during breakfast. They were dying to talk about the strange red ball and to figure out what to do next. But with Mrs. Boyd hovering around, bringing juice and milk and French toast over to them every few minutes, there was really nothing to do but eat, and fast. You three are very quiet this morning, Mrs. Boyd said at one point. Just really hungry, I guess, Will said. Can I help you with anything? Offered Jenny, as much to keep her mind off things as to actually be helpful to Jacob's mother. After breakfast, Jenny and Will headed off on their mountain bikes, while Mrs. Boyd drove Jacob to baseball practice. Let's leave the reading there, shall we? So what do you think this red ball is? You think it is some kind of mysterious orb? Do you think it is that baseball that Jacob lost in it, turned inside out? Do you think the baseball changed somehow in some other dimension, some other planet? Who knows? I don't know. Remind me, next couple episodes somewhere, and I'll bring a blood red ball to actually show you as we talk about that. But for right now, thanks for listening. Come back again for the next episode. This chapter is called the Ticket, and the one after that is the Cricket. We'll see what that's all about. What's going on with this stranger? He's kind of creeping me out there at the Eagle Creek Golf Course. So Take care of yourselves. Keep reading. Keep doing your work. We'll see you on next time. Bye.